Hari Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari Janavallabha Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna Krishna Krishna, Hare 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 Rama, Hare Rama Rama Rama, Hare 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 Krishna, Hare Krishna Krishna Krishna, Hare 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 Rama, Hare Rama Rama Rama, Hare 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 Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Srila Prabhupada ki, Nante Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki, Gaur Pranande. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayamudhirayat nashta prayasha badrishu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishtiki. Hare Krishna. So we are reading Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 11, text number 2. Sandhyamana etasmin maya guhyaka nirmita kshipram vinishur vidhura klesha gyanodaye yata sandhyamana etasmin maya guhyaka nirmita kshipram vinishur vidhura klesha gyanodaye yata Sandhyamana etasmin maya guhyaka nirmita kshipram vineshur vidura klesha gyanodayayata. Sandhyamana etasmin maya guhyaka nirmita kshipram vineshur vidura klesha gyanodayayata. Sandhyamana tasmin maya guhyaka nirmita kshipram vineshur vidura klesha gyanodayayata. Sandhyamana etasmin maya guhyaka nirmita kshipram vineshur vidura klesha gyanodayayata. Sandhyamana etasmin maya guhyaka nirmita Shivram Vineshur Vidura Klesha Gyanodaye Yata Sandhya Manaye Tasmin Maya Guyaka Nirmita Kshipram Vineshur Vidura Klesha Gyanodaye Yata Sandhya Manaye. While joining to his bow, etasmin, this Narayanastra. Oh, sorry, actually, etasmin means this Narayanastra. Maya, the illusions. Guhyaka Nirmita, created by the yakshas. Kshipram, very soon. Vineshu, were destroyed. Vidura, O Vidura. Klesha, illusory pains and pleasures. Jnana Udaya, upon the arising of knowledge. Yata, just as. Translation. As soon as Dhruva Maharaj joined the Narayanastra arrow to his bow, the illusion created by the yakshas was immediately vanquished, just as all material pains and pleasures are vanquished when one becomes fully cognizant of the self. Purport. Krishna is like the sun, and Maya, or the illusory energy of Krishna, is like darkness. Darkness means absence of light. Similarly, Maya means absence of Krishna consciousness. Krishna consciousness and Maya are always there, side by side. As soon as there is awakening of Krishna consciousness, all the illusory pains and pleasures of material existence are vanquished. Mayam etam taranti te. Constant chanting of the Maha Mantra will keep us always aloof from the illusory energy of Maya. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshura Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Parakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvetam Sadvadutam Parijana Sayitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Panchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhuvya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhaktarinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. As soon as Dhruva Maharaj joined the Narayan Astra arrow to his bow, the illusion created by the yakshas was immediately vanquished, just as all material pains and pleasures are vanquished when one becomes fully cognizant of the self. So let's just take a look at where we are in Bhagavatam before moving on to the purport for this verse today. So Dhruva Maharaj, he was in the forest performing his severe austerities, and then he was meditating on the Lord within his heart. And the Lord actually appears in front of him and grants him his benediction of receiving that realm which is greater than his father's, greater than his grandfather's. And then he realizes, I've been in so much illusion, wanting these things. And he laments. And in his lamentation, he goes back to the kingdom, and his parents and the whole kingdom, they're so pleased that he has returned. And then at some point, his father crowns him the king. And then Dhruva Maharaj's younger brother Uttama, he went on a hunting excursion and he was killed by a powerful yaksha in the Himalayan mountains. And to avenge his sibling, Dhruva Maharaj went to fight. He went to begin a war with the yakshas and to defeat them. And then there was this huge war. It was quite a detailed and gruesome description of the yakshas and how they fought with Dhruva. And then when they realized that they were going to be defeated, they created this illusion, and Dhruva saw that there was this huge mountain in the sky, and from there hailstones were falling, and clubs and swords, and he saw big serpents with angry eyes vomiting fire, and they were all coming to devour him, and he saw elephants and lions and tigers. And it seemed as if it were the dissolution of the whole world. That was the kind of vision he was seeing around him. This was the illusion that the yakshas created. So it wasn't real, but they created it to scare him, to create fear in him. And then when the sages who were with Dhruva Maharaj saw that he was becoming a little bit despondent in seeing this great illusion, then the sages told Dhruva not to fear, because the holy name of the Lord is as powerful as the Lord himself. And they explained that all he had to do was take shelter in the holy names. All he had to do was hear and chant, and then he would be saved, he would be protected, or whatever Krishna would desire would take place. And then in the first verse, Dhruva Maharaj, it's explained how Dhruva Maharaj, he feels encouraged in hearing these words from the great sages. So then he starts to pick up his arrow, and now in this verse he's picking up his bow and he's starting to demonstrate to the yakshas that he is still going to continue fighting regardless of the illusion that they've created. And then by doing this, the illusion that was created actually vanished. And then there's this analogy given here. Just as that illusion around Dhruva vanished, all the material pains and pleasures are also vanished when one becomes fully cognizant of the self. So in the purport to the previous text, it's explained that, well, there's another analogy there which compares or helps us to understand this aspect of the holy name as being protective, as being sheltering. It's described that in this age, our weapon is the chanting of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. So Dhruva Maharaj is picking up his weapon to fight against this illusion, and our weapon in this time is actually the holy name of the Lord. So there is that analogy given to help us understand how protective and how sheltering the holy names are. And then in this next verse, we're looking at another analogy where, well, there's a few analogies within the translation and the purport, but in the purport we'll see how Krishna, it says, is like the sun, and Maya, or the illusory energy of Krishna, is like darkness. So Krishna is compared to being like the sun. So that's another analogy that we're looking at to help us understand how Krishna, or the holy name of Krishna, is illuminating and purifying and merciful. So we'll take a look at these two analogies again in relation to the purport as we go along. So then Prabhupada explains in the purport that darkness means absence of light. Similarly, Maya means absence of Krishna consciousness. Krishna consciousness and Maya are always there, side by side. As soon as there is awakening of Krishna consciousness, all the illusory pains and pleasures of material existence are vanquished. So actually in material life, there is no real pleasure. There is only the cessation of pain. Just like if we're cold, like this morning, because we're not used to the cold in Durban, we put on a jersey. So putting on the jersey is only to help with the cessation of being cold. If we're hungry, we have prasadam. Having prasadam it's the cessation of being hungry. So in this material realm, there is actually no pleasure, no real pleasure. It's just the cessation of that which is suffering. And there is actually real pleasure, but it's not within material nature. The real pleasure for devotees to actually serve the Lord. And that can only be experienced once we are cognizant of the self, as it's explained here. Then all of the material pains and pleasures, which are themselves illusory, that pain and that pleasure, they are themselves illusory, not because we don't experience them and they're not a part of what we can understand, but it's because it's temporary. It has nothing to do with who we really are as spirit souls. But once we actually understand who we really are, we become cognizant of the self, we understand that we are servants in relation to Krishna and we're actually spirit souls, then although we may experience pain and pleasure, or so-called pleasure in this material world, we become aloof from that. So these pains and pleasures are vanquished when we realize, I'm servant of Krishna, and actually that is all a pure devotee would see. Just like how Srila Prabhupada's disciple, who was dealing with some managerial issues on a small scale, he was having a lot of difficulty in trying to manage his project. And he was thinking, Srila Prabhupada is managing a worldwide organization. How does he do that? I can't even manage this small-scale project. There are so many problems. And he asked Srila Prabhupada, how is it that you manage all the problems? And Srila Prabhupada said that actually, I don't see any problems. I just see service to my spiritual master. So for a pure devotee, they don't see the inconveniences of the material body as being a problem. They just see that I have a service to my spiritual master. I have a duty to my spiritual master. So their consciousness is always pure, even though they may go through difficulties being within a material body. They are aloof from that. And Srila Prabhupada did explain that the material body by nature will give us trouble, and we've all experienced that, at least to some degree, some more than others. Our bodies give us a lot of trouble, our minds give us a lot of trouble. By nature, the material body will give us difficulty. It will get tired, it will get hungry, it will get sick. But Prabhupada encouraged that regardless of these difficulties, we should still try to serve the Lord. Of course, within our capacity, being in our bodies, but actually for a devotee who has taste in service, they'll be able to do a lot more for Krishna than a person who is perhaps even healthier would be able to do out there in the world just for working, because the taste is sweet. And then looking back at the analogy of the sunlight, the holy name of the Lord is being like sunlight. So in the darkness, we cannot actually see anything. We can't understand anything. We don't know who we are. We don't know who Krishna is. We can't see that we are spirit souls in relation to Krishna. But in contrast to this ignorance, when we receive some knowledge, Shri Shri Radharani Ki, Srila Prabhupada Ki, transcendental knowledge, just like we're chanting in the morning, Chakshudan Dilo Jay Janmi Janmi Prabhu Se, that the spiritual master is illuminating our heart with transcendental knowledge. So the sun, it's illuminating and it's warm. Let's just look at the qualities of that knowledge, which is or this Maha Mantra, because knowledge about Krishna and Krishna himself, they're not different. So Krishna, his holy names, they are illuminating and warm, and they give life. In the Shikshastakam, the life of all transcendental knowledge. And another quality of the sun is that it goes everywhere. It doesn't discriminate between, if you think about a dirty place and a clean place, it doesn't discriminate. It goes everywhere that it can go. And there's another analogy given somewhere else in Bhagavatam where it's explained that the sunlight evaporates water even from an unclean place. So here we're seeing this quality of mercy, and we're seeing this quality of giving life. But we also have to make the choices which lead to illumination. Because although the sun does not discriminate, if we stay inside a dark room, we can't expect that we'll get the sunlight. We have to make the decision to go outside. So it's up to us to actually make that endeavor and make that decision. We have to make an effort. We can't expect to see the sun. It's always there, the mercy of the sun is always there, but we have to actually make an endeavor to receive that mercy. So that illuminating knowledge and mercy, it's ever existent, but we have to make that effort to accept it. And that effort is not just something mental. We don't just think, yes, I'm going to get the mercy somehow or other. It's not just some vague idea. We have to do something practical. We have to follow the process of Krishna consciousness. Wake up for Mangala Arati, follow the process, chant Hare Krishna. We have to make some endeavor to get that mercy, to experience the warmth of the holy name. Srila Prabhupada's father said to him that when he was a child, you know, Krishna, he has so many arms and legs and he wants to give you so much mercy with all his arms and legs, and you have just 2 little hands. How are you going to accept all that mercy with your 2 little hands? So Krishna is always wanting to give us all that mercy, but we have to be ready to accept it by trying. And the practice of devotional service in itself is also illuminating, because service to the Lord and the Maha Mantra and Krishna are not different from one another. And there's an example like that, or a few examples like that, where there was a devotee, a disciple of Srila Prabhupada, and he was chanting a lot of rounds every day, chanting Maha Mantra very sincerely. And he had a lot of questions that he wanted to ask Prabhupada. And then he got the opportunity to actually meet Srila Prabhupada. But this was a time when Prabhupada was very ill. And Prabhupada called his disciple over, and he put his lips by the ear of the disciple, and he chanted the Maha Mantra once. And then that disciple found that all of those questions that he had within his heart were answered. So this disciple, you can see he was making an effort, he was making an endeavor to chant and connect with the holy names. And then he received this illumination, this knowledge. It actually did come to him simply from hearing the holy names of the Lord. Another example is when an aristocratic man came to meet Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, and he had questions for him, but Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was busy at the time, and he explained that he should go and speak to his disciples and ask his disciples. But this man thought, no, I want to ask him, what will his disciples be able to tell me? Anyway, he went to the disciples, and then the disciples said, no, we are also busy with our service, but please, would you like to assist us? We're cleaning the paraphernalia of the Lord. So he did assist. And then when it was time for him to actually meet Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he said, after doing that service, all of my questions have been answered. That's another example how we can see that devotional service in itself, chanting in itself, gives us this illumination. But we're also seeing an aspect of following instructions there. So this man, he followed the instructions from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur to serve in a particular way, to go and associate with the devotees. And we are also instructed to chant, just like the disciple of Srila Prabhupada. And if we do that properly, we will also be given this intelligence, how to serve Krishna, how to offer our hearts to our spiritual masters. And the verse we recited in the beginning, Ashtaprayashabadeshu, the translation is, by regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam and by rendering of service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. So by hearing about the Lord, by serving in that way, and then by rendering practical service as well to the pure devotee, then that illusory energy which is covering the heart becomes cleared away, and we actually receive love, loving service, devotional service. And then Srila Prabhupada, he ends his purport by explaining that Mayam etam tarantite, constant chanting of the Mahamantra will keep us always aloof from the illusory energy of Maya. And that was a portion of a text which explains that this divine energy of mine, and this is Krishna speaking, this divine energy of mine, consisting of the three modes of material nature, is difficult to overcome. But those who have surrendered unto me can easily cross beyond it. This divine energy of mind consisting of the three modes of material nature, from that we can understand that actually Maya is also the energy of the Lord. She's actually a great devotee serving the Lord in a particular way. And it may seem to us that she is taking us away from Krishna, but actually it is we who have made the decision to try and separate ourselves from Krishna. It is we who made that decision. And it's we who have become so addicted to the illusory energy and the pains and pleasures of this material world. Because we have minute independence, and we actually at some point misused that minute independence. So at each moment it's so important that we're seeing we have a decision. In the purport, Prabhupada says, Krishna consciousness and Maya are always there side by side. They are side by side, and we have to always make that decision. We have a decision. Do we serve Krishna or do we serve our senses? Do we serve Krishna or do we serve Maya? We have to make that decision each and every moment. It's a choice we have to constantly make. And then those little choices in our lives culminate into the bigger choices that we end up making in our lives. But from the outside, it may not be so easy to detect whether the big choices a person makes are made for Krishna or made for Maya. And even within our own lives, what to speak of others, we cannot tell. But even within our own lives, we cannot tell sometimes. Are we making a decision based on Krishna consciousness, or are we making it in relation to Maya? It's not so easy to tell. Like, for example, sometimes, this is just one example, for one person, it may be Maya to live in the temple, whereas for another person, that may be exactly what they need to be Krishna conscious. We don't know. We can't tell. So how is it that we actually can understand what is Krishna and what is Maya? Because sometimes Maya, she will dress up to look just like Krishna, and we will think, yes, that's perfect. That's exactly what I need to serve Krishna. And sometimes Krishna, he will trick us and surprise us in what he desires for us, and we'll think, really, Krishna, that's what you want for me to do? It's very bewildering. So how do we know? Well, we can look at the life of Dhruva, and in this case, how was it that he was able to overcome the illusion? He was in illusion as well. We're in illusion, he was bewildered by the illusory energy. How is it that he was able to overcome that? He was able to overcome that by hearing from the great sages. And what did they tell him? They told him to take shelter in the Lord, in the holy name of the Lord. So we also need to take shelter in the association and in the instructions of those who are more spiritually advanced than us, in the great sages who we know in our lives. Those who are more advanced than us, they can see higher than us, and they can see from higher than us. A personal example was when I came to Shri Shri Radharanath. I was meant to stay here for 1 week, and then I had this big plan to move to Midrand, and I was going to go and work, and I had this whole vision, and my Guru Maharaj allowed me some freedom to make a decision. He said, you have to decide. And then when I told him, Guru Maharaj, actually I'm thinking of going to Midrand, and then he was very firm with me. He said, no, you stay at Shri Shri Radharanath. He was very strong about that. He said, stay at Shri Shri Radharanath, because 90% of your Krishna consciousness comes from association. So, although we may have some idea of what we need and what's good for us, what's good for our Krishna consciousness, we actually have no idea. But Guru knows best. Those who are higher than us, who can see higher than us, they know what's best. They can see the future. They understand what's coming for us. They may not explicitly say it, or they may say that they don't see the future, but they do. And I've seen that. I've seen some things my Guru Maharaj say to me take place in my life and unfold in my life. And it's clear that these personalities who we are taking shelter in, they actually can offer us the highest guidance. We have to just try to hear, and understand. But it's not always so easy. But at least we can understand that it's an individual process, that we have an individual battle, and for all of us, taking shelter in association with devotees who are the sages in our lives, that will be the cure for that illusion. That will be the guidance that we need to overcome the illusion. But Srila Prabhupada also explains that, and this is chapter 10, text 10 of Bhagavad Gita, he explains in the purport that even if a person does have a spiritual master, like we do, and even if a person is within a spiritual organization, like we are, still he may not be intelligent enough to actually make progress. So yes, we have tried to take shelter, we have our spiritual masters, we are within ISKCON, but still we may not actually have the intelligence to really take shelter. And then what does Krishna do? He's actually so kind that it's explained that from within our hearts, Krishna gives us instruction to ultimately come to him without difficulty. But we have to have some qualification in order for him to do that for us. And the qualification is that we have to engage ourselves in Krishna consciousness with love and devotion and render all kinds of services. So if we really try to do that, then he will help us. It's explained he should perform some sort of work for Krishna, and that work should be with love. If a devotee is intelligent enough, he will make progress on the path of self-realization. But if one is sincere and devoted to the activities of devotional service, the Lord gives him a chance to make progress and ultimately attain to him. So just because we are taking shelter and trying to serve, whether or not we understand exactly how to do that, Krishna will help us to do that from within our hearts or through his pure devotee. In so many ways, actually, Krishna is always trying to communicate with us. And he can speak through even the most unlikely people, but we have to learn how to hear him. Just like how Chintamani, the prostitute, spoke to Bhuvamangala, an unlikely source, but she spoke to him and she enlightened him. So we don't know. We don't know. Again, we won't know. Is Krishna speaking, or is it just the illusory energy? But we also have to pray and to try and see the truth. And we have to try to take shelter in the instructions of our spiritual master and hear the holy name, and then everything will become clear, because it's self-illuminating. The path in itself is self-illuminating, and everything will become clear. And then okay, yeah, we can read this. In the next text in that chapter 10, it's text 11, it says, "Out of compassion for them, I, dwelling in their hearts, destroy with the shining lamp of knowledge the darkness born of ignorance." And in the purport, it is said, the Lord tells Arjuna that basically there is no possibility of understanding the supreme truth, the absolute truth, the supreme personality of Godhead, simply by speculating. For the supreme truth is so great that it is not possible to understand him or to achieve him simply by making a mental effort. Man can go on speculating for several millions of years, and if he is not devoted, if he is not a lover of the supreme truth, he will never understand Krishna or the supreme truth. Only by devotional service is the supreme truth, Krishna, pleased, and by his inconceivable energy, he can reveal himself to the heart of the pure devotee. The pure devotee always has Krishna within his heart. Therefore, he is just like the sun that dissipates the darkness of ignorance. This is a special mercy rendered to the pure devotee by Krishna. Due to the contamination of material association, through many, many millions of births, one's heart is always covered with the dust of materialism. But when one engages in devotional service and constantly chants Hare Krishna, the dust quickly clears and one is elevated to the platform of pure knowledge. The ultimate goal of Vishnu can be attained only by this chanting and by devotional service, and not by mental speculation or argument. The pure devotee does not have to worry about the necessities of life. He need not be anxious, because when he removes the darkness from his heart, everything is provided automatically by the Supreme Lord, for he is pleased by the loving devotional service of the devotee. This is the essence of the Gita's teachings. By studying Bhagavad Gita, one can become a completely surrendered soul to the Supreme Lord and engage himself in pure devotional service. As the Lord takes charge, one becomes completely free from all kinds of materialistic endeavors. So, in conclusion, just looking at those two analogies, the one is Krishna, the holy name, being our weapon in this age of Kali Yuga. So he's protecting us from this illusory energy, and we pick up this weapon to defend ourselves against Maya. But then we start to see also that by illumination that Maya is in itself illusory in the first place, and that actually therefore our only real shelter is the holy name. And something else we can learn from that is that by ourselves we cannot try to fight Maya. But when we start to see that our real shelter is the holy name of the Lord, then we will be in association with the holy name of the Lord all the time through constantly chanting. And rather than fearing the situations of the illusory energy, we could fear forgetfulness of Krishna. And rather than defending ourselves against Maya, we simply take shelter in the holy names of the Lord. Then everything else will come. Through constantly chanting, everything else will come. through constantly taking shelter in the holy names of the Lord, that all the shelter, all that protection, all of the transcendental pleasure will just come from chanting the holy names of the Lord. Everything will come, including all of the highest benedictions that the heart seeks. Everything will come just from constantly taking shelter in the holy names of the Lord. Hare Krishna. Are there any questions or comments or corrections? Yes.
I had a question and then a comment.
Okay.
I need to find it though. Okay, I found it. So, in the beginning of the class you were talking about, no real pleasure in the material world, only the cessation of misery, which we have spoken about a lot. But I was just thinking, how do we preach to other people, like new people, when we go to the students and stuff, this fact of there's no real pleasure in the material world? How do we say this in a encouraging way rather than like a disappointing way?
Well, the material world is disappointing. There's no point in lying to them. But there's a way to present it in a way that they can digest. Just like how Srila Prabhupada gives us all these analogies to help us understand. Who can understand the Mahamantra? Who can understand the mercy of the Mahamantra? Who can understand the sheltering qualities of the Mahamantra? We cannot understand. But Prabhupada gives us all these analogies to help us understand. He breaks it down, he makes it digestible. So we have to think what is relatable to them. We can give some examples, like if you eat a pizza, it's so nice. But if you eat 10, is it nice anymore? No. You're hungry and you eat it and it seems nice, but then you can't have too much of it before it just becomes boring, or you can't even digest it anymore. So there's a limit to the amount we can enjoy in this material world. That in itself will not give us the pleasure we're looking for. And we can see that there are people in this world who seem to have everything. They have the house, the car, the job, the fame, everything material that anyone could possibly want. And they're still not satisfied. There's something missing in their lives. And some of them even commit suicide because they're so unhappy. And that just shows that this material world in itself and all the material qualities of the world, that is not going to give us the satisfaction we're looking for. We have to go deeper than that. We have to look within our hearts and uncover that happiness from within our hearts. So there's a way to kind of explain things so that we're not just telling them there is no happiness in the material world, there's only suffering, and so there's a way. Is that okay? Do you have any other suggestions for ways we could approach that topic? Anyone?
Do you have a tip? Oh, I thought. That's a really, really nice answer. I'm just trying to figure it out because I myself I'm also trying to figure out what is happiness. So it's nice to hear from others. And then I was just thinking, we then near to the end of the class talking about how, by constantly chanting we can cleanse the heart. But that constantly chanting is also such an exalted position. Trinadapi Sunichena. We need to be humble to be able to chant constantly. But that's very difficult for those like myself that are not there. So it's like then we can also just take shelter of practical devotional service to get us to the level of constantly chanting. I was just thinking that.
Thank you. Yeah, that's a nice comment. Thank you for bringing that up. It's true. It's a really high level of constantly chanting. So we can take shelter in chanting with practical service, because with those examples we can see that the practical service in itself is also illuminating it. And then even if we don't have the intelligence, we don't have what it takes to actually take shelter, then Krishna somehow or other, he will make an arrangement. He will somehow or other make that arrangement to purify our hearts and give us what is needed to actually get there. But we have to keep trying. That's the point. Really trying. Yes. Thank you for that. Does anyone else have any? Yes.
Yeah, I was just thinking about the material world itself. It's so enamoring, and for new people, it's very difficult to tell them, that you're getting no pleasure. It's definitely difficult to tell them that.
Yes.
But the way to preach to new people, it's every person is an individual, and you have to use different techniques with different people. But that's one of the things that, like sometimes I get into a discussion got nothing to do with Krishna consciousness. Just like mundane topics about football and all kind of different things. And slowly, then they kind of open up. I had an experience like that once when a person came to the Durban Ratha Yatra. They were white people, they were from London. But the lady was saying this man has no interest in spirituality, nothing, absolutely zero. And the wife said, can you talk to him? I said, yeah, I'll talk to him, but... so she was standing there, then I started talking to him, I asked him, where are you from? He said he's from certain place, Liverpool, he's from Liverpool, London, and I was just chatting with him, different things about Liverpool Football Club. So I was a sports star myself, then I love football, so I started talking to him for a while, and this lady kept on looking at me and thinking, when is this guy going to talk about God? There's nothing talking about anything about God. Then I got into music. I started talking a whole thing about music, and then finally I came to the Beatles, because the Beatles are from Liverpool, and he's from Liverpool. So then I tied everything up. Now then I spoke about the Beatles. Oh, he was just so ecstatic. So he said, no book really interested him. So I pulled out the book, Chant and Be Happy, and I showed him the Beatles. So then he said, okay, I'll take this book. He bought the book, he went to the flat, read the whole book, told his wife the next morning, let's go see the guy back. This thing really had an effect on him. But the topic was not really spiritual. Not very spiritual. Then he came back and he said, okay, what other book you recommend? So I pulled out a Krishna book, because George Harrison signs it. So, then he reads it, he looks at that, he bought that book. He bought the book, and they went to Johannesburg. In Johannesburg, he read the whole book. He flew down to Durban to this temple. Now, this is like from just talking on material things. And then he came to the room, Prabhupada's room, and we were sitting and we were chatting, and he started narrating all the pastimes. I was just wondering, this guy couldn't believe it. And I just couldn't believe it. I'm looking at him and I'm thinking, wow. Then one devotee, Chaitanya Charani, came and took Prabhupada's hat off. When he took his hat off, the guy is asking, but why are you taking the hat off? Then I started explaining impersonalism, how he's feeling hot and things like that. So, you bring it gradually. In the end, he was there, but you have to know. Therefore, when you meet, even students you're meeting, you have to tell different things, so like that. And when you say different things, then it has that effect. So it's very gradual. But you have to weigh it. Like some people, I tell them, give up meat eating, give up this, give up that. This is not pleasurable. Depending on the person. Like Srila Prabhupada, when he spoke in India, when you hear his talk, he tell them, dogs, cats, animals. He call them hogs, and they can't say anything because they know he's a saint. So he just called them all these names, and he preached heavily in India. But in the West, he was kind of a little compromising. So you have to do that. You can say the person is, this is the material world. But sometimes we can't use those words like hogs, dogs, camels, asses, and he spoke about it in one place. In America, he did speak at one point, in one of the Western countries, and the people's jaws were dropping. And that's bad. So yeah, so it's like that. So you have to, because I see devotees preach, but they cannot. You have to be intuitive and just see what you have to tell them, because sometimes you don't have to tell them anything. It's just have some prasadam. This is really good. Yeah. Yeah. Like we went a Harinam one day on the Amshlanga, you were there, and the guy, one big size guy with the, it was like a bodybuilding he was doing, and I was just running front towards him and chanting, and he was ecstatic. Just pulled out his wallet and just gave like 350 rand like that, and just gave it and left. You recall?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like that. So thank you. I think.
Thank you. Praja Sevaki.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
I'd like to add to what Raghunath Prabhu said. It's always nice to preach to students in a very relatable way. Because I remember when I was starting to know about Krishna consciousness, some of the devotees, they preached to me in a nice way. And then this other devotee was talking about Hiranyakashipu, Nishingari. I'm like, what is this person talking about? I was so confused. I was so lost. And, it should be like a gradual process, And then the person also has to be in a position whereby they also want to know more. You can't be bombarding this new person with so much information that they, get confused and they can't even process what you're talking about. So, and also devotee association is very important, and you can learn from people that are senior to you, So, yeah.
Thank you, Praja Sevaki. Thank you, Raghunath Prabhu. Something Rukmini Devi said in a class, which I really appreciated as well, was that at the end of the day, whoever it is you're reaching out to, they may not take all that philosophy back with them, but what they'll take back is who you are. Yeah. And if you genuinely care about them, this is also something you said after that same Harinam, Raghunath Prabhu, if you genuinely care about them, that is something felt. They feel that. And I've also seen in relation, especially to my family, that the hearts of those who we are reaching out to really opens up when they feel genuinely cared for. And a part of genuinely caring for them is caring what's going on in their lives. And yes, there may be some mundane conversations around that to understand where they're at, who they really are, what's going on in their lives. But they really appreciate that. They appreciate being heard. They appreciate that, and they appreciate feeling cared for. Yes.
The other day we went for a ceremony, and in the ceremony I heard everybody who gave the talks. We couldn't speak. We were just chanting a little bit, and it was just like a Christian ceremony, the whole thing. And but I recalled everything what people said. So when we went back to the house to do the program, Krishna Chaitanya gave a wonderful talk. Absolutely wonderful. The people were inspired. But he was talking about the person. And that what attracted them. Then I started recalling all what was said about the person. And I'm saying, the things. So they were quite inspired by that, because it was dealing with them, with the person himself. And then we ended the program, and then we went again the past week. And Virabhadra gave the talk. So in the end, I asked, I told a few things, because the daughter wasn't there when the first time we went. I said, yeah, your father won't be there to help you for your maths. He won't be there for, to coach the son into his cricket. I started talking about those types of things. So they were very alert. They became alert, And and then I spoke about the girl doing show jumping. She was then we brought it to the point of what is the most beautiful animal, or most attractive animal? It's the horse. So then we related it to Krishna consciousness, that this cow, one person said the cow. So the cow is sacred, but the horse is very beautiful and attractive. And then we brought it back. Then she, you look at it from another angle, and then you bring the person back to Krishna consciousness, in a different way. So thank you very much.
Okay. Do you have a question over there? No, okay. His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki, Gaur Premanande.